as you go through different challenges, as you go, because something's going to always happen. There's always going to be something.
Yeah.
Okay. Look at it as an opportunity. The first opportunity is to grow closer to Christ. Okay. If you are a faith believer, you will understand that that's the first thing that opportunity to give it you. Second, it's an opportunity for you to grow, because for this to happen, there's something that's lacking. Okay, there's something that's lacking. So whether it be some training, whether it could be school, whether it be building a relationship,
Right.
whatever, it could be different things, but it's giving you that chance.
This is the Turn Your Life Around podcast, and I'm the 180 lady. I've been helping people turn their lives around since 2007 as the founder and CEO of a large mental health company. The purpose of this podcast is to have meaningful conversations with old friends and new friends, everyday people just like you and me, about how they turn their lives around. We'll discuss all things mental health, fitness, finances, relationships, parenting, spirituality, you name it. My hope is that you can take something away that will encourage you today. I'm your host, Sarah Coates. Are you ready to turn your life around? Hello and welcome to the podcast. Boy, do we have a treat for you today. I am so excited to have our special guest, Mr. Michael Sims. He's actually Mayor Pro Tem of Clayton. If you don't know where Clayton is, Clayton's about 20 miles southeast of Raleigh and in the Johnston County community. Michael is also VP of Video for TNT Creative Group, and we have a really special conversation coming up about all different ways that he has turned his life around. So welcome so much to the podcast, Michael.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love what you guys are doing, and again, just happy to be a part.
Thank you. Well, in our kind of pre-prep meetings, we talked about all different ways that you have turned your life around. And so if I could just pass it to you just for a few minutes, share a little bit about where you were born, your upbringing, where you came from, how you even made it to Johnston County.
Well, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. Wasn't born there. Was born in actually Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Grew up though in Detroit. I graduated high school 79, 80. Wasn't that all that good of a student. I always kind of skirted the line. It wasn't that I come to learn this later on. It wasn't that I wasn't really that smart. It was just that there were other things that kind of occupied my mind. I'll just say, growing up in inner city Detroit. From there, I went enlisted into the United States Marine Corps. Part of that reason was my mom had actually divorced my father, and I was the oldest. And as the oldest, I felt an obligation to try to help my mom out with my 4 other brothers and help to bring in some money. So I joined the Marine Corps and sent a majority of my check home to help my mom raise my brothers. Went into the Marine Corps. Wow. I didn't know it was going to turn into a 21 year career, but ended up staying in there 21 years. Done everything you can possibly think of. In there, did spend 9 months in Iraq. So I am combat decorated. I also went to school while I was in there and ended up getting my bachelor's degree. So I kind of turned myself around from the education standpoint and began to understand how much more important education was to help me out later on in life. But probably the biggest thing that I'm most happy and proud of during that time in the Marine Corps is I met my wife. And that was like early in my career. And we had 2 sons while I was in there. And retired around 2000, took a job with Pepsi. And became account executive with them. I did 13 years with Pepsi. I did, left there, went to Walmart. I know that's crazy. But ran a Walmart for several years. And then I went to, started a company with a gentleman by the name of Derek Thompson called TNT Creative Group, a digital media marketing firm, to where I'm at today as vice president of video for that particular company. But there's a lot of things that happened within that to get me to that time frame.
That's fascinating. You were in the Marines and you were sending your check back to your mom to help care for your brothers. How old were those boys?
Oh, wow. Oh, so when I left to go into the Marine Corps, so I was 8. So my brother that was right behind me so I went in when I was 17. He was 15.
Uh-huh.
And the youngest one was probably around 5 or 6
Wow.
at the time.
Yeah.
The youngest one was probably 5 or 6. Interesting thing too, when and I was way off into the Marine Corps then and had my own family, but my mom passed away while I was in the Marine Corps too. So I had to end up, my youngest brother, I ended up taking him in with me, and me and my wife ended up raising him too as part of my family. Yes.
Wow. What a blessing you were to him and to that family. Man. Wow. So I know you mentioned you have a degree in aviation. We were just chatting about that.
Yes.
Most people think that means you fly planes.
Yeah, it does, and I got that from Southern Illinois University. The degree itself, man, it's more from the standpoint of running anything from a airport to a maintenance facility. I often get asked, like you said, can I fly planes? I think if there was an emergency, I'd figure it out. They had to say, somebody, we see the things in the movies, hey, can somebody fly the plane? I think I'd figured it out if I had to. Yes.
Talk about turning life around, man, if you would have to jump in a pilot's seat, rescue a plane.
That would be a huge turnaround.
So, Mayor Pro Tem of Clayton, North Carolina, if you don't mind sharing, what has that experience been like as a Black man serving in that role in government?
So let me take you back a little bit on that, on my actual decision to even go, into that direction as far as politics. I never actually, my wife can testify, I never actually wanted to be in politics, never really thought about being in politics. But in 2019, some things I felt that weren't quite right in Clayton. I've always been satisfied with Clayton's government, direction Clayton was going. There were some things that were happening that I did not like, and I felt individuals wasn't really listening. So I decided to say, well, if they're not listening, then I'll just run for your seat. And it was a councilman seat at that particular time. And I said, I'll run for the seat, and talk with my wife, prayed, and ended up running, and I ended up winning. One of the things that I heard a lot of, and of course I'm not from Johnston County, I'm from Detroit, was that being an African-American male, that I would, there was a lot of stuff that I would have to go up against. For me personally, I never really took that in. I don't know if it's, some would probably say because I'm not from there, but I just think that and feel that strongly that if the Lord has it for you, then that's for you. And after I prayed, and he literally told me, don't worry about the election.
Right.
He told me just to spread my word. And in the midst of that, opportunities came up for times for me to be able to spread his word. I'll never forget at church the week before the election, my pastor gave me opportunity to speak to the congregation, but I was telling the congregation that a lot of you are waiting for next week's results. I'm already happy right now. Why? Because I had the opportunity to spread his word. I already did. I already won,
right,
in essence. So, of course, I went on to win. For the 2 years after that, I served as a councilman. There was already what we called, and the gentleman's name was Jason Thompson, who was serving as mayor pro tem. He lost during the next election, so we had to have another mayor pro tem. And with the peers, I had your peers kind of elect you as that. And I'm extremely grateful. It is a title, and I understand what it means to be the first African-American mayor pro tem in Johnston County and in Clayton. But when it's all said and done, hopefully that I'll be remembered as not that, but as a leader, a man of God, somebody that really looked out for the people.
I love that. That's excellent. I love how your focus was just spreading his word.
Yes, thank you.
And then I think that's actually a really interesting talking point. When we focus on the main thing And for you and I, it's
Mhm.
God.
It is.
When you focus on the main thing, you get elevated into positions that maybe you weren't even equipped to do, but you get appointed there
Mm,
because someone else
mhm.
is in charge of your life.
I'll never forget when little story, when I started at Pepsi, I started as a bottom line supervisor,
Mhm.
and I got moved up to a senior account executive. I was over Pepsi's one of our largest accounts, which was Walmart
Wow.
and Target, and I was doing Sam's Clubs, and we were at a convention, and I had to work on some things, right? And I had my laptop open, and I was pecking. I was literally pecking some stuff out, and my wife looks over and says, She says, "You have truly been gifted because I don't see a senior account executive pecking or whatever.
Right.
It's truly a gifting, and the Lord has always done that. I think at the end of the day, He'll provide the opportunities. Our problems is if we're going to step into them or not.
Mm.
We do a lot of different things to deter from that. We will make up these things so that because I don't have enough of this, or I'm waiting for that, or I need to make sure I have this, when the realities of it is He's already equipped you
Right.
by your faith in believing in Him. He's going to take you to the next stage, but you have to be able to step into the opportunity. And yes, I've been blessed. I've done a lot of things, but because of the fact that I like to step into the opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of times we get in our way. We get in our own way.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're 110% correct on that.
Mhm. So you mentioned your wife,
Mhm.
and I know earlier we were chatting about a very pivotal turning life around moment that you and your wife have a shared experience. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's one of the cornerstones of my faith in knowing how powerful faith is. 2019, my wife was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. Um, like many of us that have gotten cancer, she went through the surgery, had to have chemo, had to have radiation. In the midst of her going through all of those, and we prayed, and we were going just like any other couple. Her father, all right, ended up with having diagnosed with brain cancer.
Mm.
So, of course, she loves her dad. She loves her dad. And as she was going through hers, she wanted to keep trying to go down and visit him, which was about an hour away. So, turn your life around me. That, okay, the good and best ideal is I'll just move him up here with me.
Yeah.
So, I had both him and her. Her sisters did an outstanding job in actually helping to take care of them at my house. He was only given a short period of time to live when I brought him up with me, but he ended up living over in another year and a half. So that just shows you again about faith. My wife had totally recovered. Then right on the back end of her recovery, at the end, he passes away. During that same time period, she starts to lose a massive amount of weight. She actually gets down to 98 pounds, and we couldn't figure out what it was. Doctors couldn't figure out what it was. Long story short, they ended up finding out that during the radiation, somehow her intestines got fused together,
Wow.
and she couldn't hold down any food or anything like that. So she had to go back into the hospital, but we couldn't even get her back into the hospital because we had to get her weight back up.
Mm.
During that time period, I decided, hey, I hadn't been to the doctor in a while. Let me get myself checked out. Bam, I'm hit with cancer.
Oh my
I have
goodness.
prostate cancer. So because of where it was at and how the stage I was in, I elected to have the surgery for removal. But COVID was going on. And like I said, she was literally had to be in a feeding tube to get her weight back up. And I have two sons, but one of the sons was taking care of her with the feeding tube and everything, and the other son went to the hospital with me for surgery. So what was really just a faith moment is knowing too that you raised your kids, especially two sons, that they had enough values and
Yeah.
ethics that they, when I say they had to take care of mom and dad, just say they have to take care of mom and dad in all ways.
Yeah.
Not saying that, boys can't, but you kind of expect that a little bit out of girls.
Yeah.
So they literally had to get a hospital bed and move it into my master bedroom. So my wife is in, if you could picture, my wife's in one bed. I'm in the other bed, and they're just kind of nursing us back to health. Now, I often get asked about that whole time period, as far as, hey, I know you had to get down. I know you had this had to happen. And, I often think of the story of Job.
Mm.
And in that particular story where he would not turn from God, I still don't think I hit the plateau of Job, but at the same time, I never wavered in my faith, mainly because there was something that I was supposed to learn during this time period. And I learned a lot. I'll just say I learned a lot and grew closer to him. For I already knew, and that's one of the biggest things. People you could come into your faith, you can come to God at any particular time that you want. He's always waiting for you to open arms. But I'm going to tell you this, it's a lot better if you're going through it like I went through and you already have them.
Right.
There's a comfort there that words can't describe.
Yeah. Well, there's a hope. You just have this like deep in your sense hope when you already have him before you go through the hard things. And I'm a therapist. People ask me all the time, does God cause suffering? Why do bad things happen to good people? Those are those existential questions that I think humans just have, and
I'd be curious to know though, how do you answer that?
Well, you want to know my response?
Yes.
My response is I don't believe God causes suffering. I don't think he creates pain. I think that all of that stuff happens because we live in a fallen, sinful world. And that's just where we are now, right?
Amen.
One day the hope is there won't be any of that. But the world we live in today is full of all kinds of nonsense and yuckiness.
Yes,
and we're just humans experiencing it. So when people get cancer, I don't think God gives people cancer. I think you get cancer because you're human and there's sickness in this life we live, right? But I think God uses those experiences to teach us, to grow us. If you don't know him, hopefully the experience leads you to him. If you already know him, it deepens your faith in him.
Correct.
And just watch to see what God does. And you have a story of that.
As far as
like he healed.
Oh, amen. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And I think that, again, some people might disagree with it, but again, even as I talk about those other things as opportunities, that was an opportunity too. That was an opportunity for me to either go in one direction or go in another direction.
Right.
And I chose the latter.
Yeah.
Again, I still look to spread his word in everything that I do, because at the end of the day, I know there's going to continue to be other things. And then I do have to say this too. I have, like I said, sons. I have 6.5 grandchildren.
Wait, 6.5?
Got one in the oven.
Okay,
right
okay, yeah.
Got one in the oven. And I also have 2 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
So I'm saying that to say that the example that I set, that my wife sets, that we set, is what's going to eventually go down for them to see.
Yeah.
Your expectations for your children can't be more than that you don't set for yourself.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
You have to set those higher so that they can at least see, hey, you know what? Dad did this. The grandkids can say, hey, look at what Poppy did or whatever. Yeah. I can't tell them to go do that if I'm not pushing myself just as hard to do those things.
Well, and I think hearing your story from when you enlisted in the Marines, you set that example. They weren't even alive yet, but you set that standard back then when you enlisted, and then you were helping your mom and brothers out. I mean, you set that generational pattern up from the get-go.
Yes. And I always, it was funny to me because my wife has often said one of the reasons why she married me and knew that I would be a good husband was because I never thought about it. I just thought it was what I was supposed to do because she saw me taking care of my mom.
Yeah.
And sending the majority of my money home to take care of my mom.
Yeah.
So those things like that, there's just certain morals, ethics, and just standards that we set in life that are going to continue to press on to be an example to hopefully your children. Both my sons, I'm proud to say, are married, and they are doing extremely well.
Yeah.
And my hope and prayers for my grandchildren is to continue that. But somebody has to step up, and I like to call it to being the adult in the room.
Yeah.
Okay. And set that example. Right now, we're in a society where we don't want to set any examples. We just want everybody just to kind of do whatever you feel like doing. Well, I couldn't necessarily said, hey, I don't feel like sending all my check home to my mom to take care of my brothers because it's all about me now or whatever. But again, through certain things that are given to us, there's a lot of responsibility that comes to, with that.
Yeah. What's that saying? I don't know if it's...
To whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that's scriptural or if that's just a saying, but it's... Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's scriptural. Yeah.
It's very, very good standard to live by.
It is. I love that. I actually, I got, which was pretty cool. I got called back to Southern Illinois University to do the commencement speech and that's actually was my topic. So I truly believe in that. I believe in life is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Right.
It's a marathon. So you take off small chunks, you take off small wins, and then you look at those things and you move on to the next.
Yeah.
You look at those and you move on to the next. And there should be something that you will always should be challenging yourself on.
Yeah.
When my wife's dad was staying with us, one of the things I didn't like was our bedrooms are upstairs. And me and him would, especially we got down there towards the end, we'd sit down and we'd watch Cops. And he always would laugh. And
the Bad Boys?
Bad Boys thing. And we'd always have a good time looking at that. And then I would help him to go up the steps. I always would feel guilty. Excuse me. I would always feel guilty that, going up the steps, I was like, oh man, he's there and helping up. And I actually said something to him one day. And he said, he looked at me and kind of like, what? He's like, this is the best part of my day. And what he was saying was, what I realized he was talking about the challenge of him. He had to push himself. He's still at that age, 82, was still trying to a challenge to push himself. Why is that important? After each accomplishment, each thing we do, we should still be always pushing ourselves. We should be pushing ourselves in our business, pushing ourselves for opportunities, pushing ourselves most of all in our faith to continue to grow until that time comes.
Yeah. That's a good point about, pushing yourself, continuing to grow, whether it's in business, your personal life, your faith. Because otherwise you just get stagnant. And then, if you're a believer, then, what are you allowing God to continue to do in your life if you're just staying kind of stagnant?
Correct.
You're not growing.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I mean, I look at you and what you've done with 180 counseling. I mean, and from that and what you started from that first one to what are you, how many are you?
We have 6 locations.
Yeah, 6 locations now. And now you're entering into a podcast. You're looking to spread the word out around the area just to reach more people. That is in itself is a testament to what we're talking about right now. You're constantly looking at that opportunity. You're constantly looking to go to that next stage. I joke that I got my scuba certification at 51. So again, that was just something I said, you know what, let me go ahead on. I've always wanted to do scuba. I wanted to get certified, but there's always still something to constantly push yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the things we've been talking about is perspective. I think a lot of times when you're in a really hard place or you feel stagnant or, even if it's something good going on in your life, what matters is our perspective, our outlook of how we're seeing it. I think so many people see things as this is happening against me instead of what can I learn from this hard spot I'm in.
That's really good. Because at the end of the day, life is nothing but a book of lessons. So what page do you want to turn? Do you want to just keep the book closed or do you want to turn to the next chapter? So a lot of us get to a point where we're on chapter 2 and the Lord wants us to get all the way to chapter 18.
Yeah.
All right. And chapter 18 has this whole big surprise for us, but we sometimes don't want to turn that page because it becomes challenging. If I was the Michael Sims that barely passed high school.
Yeah.
And when I say barely passed high school, I mean, it got down to the last grade when I was actually leaving. It was time to go to the Marine Corps. I had to get a slip signed. And my auto mechanics teacher, Mr. Page, I'll never forget the man. I wish I could have gone back in there. He looked at me and said, "You got to be kidding me." He said, "You want me to sign this saying that you passed and you have been late for my class, you've talked in my class, you have done it." He starts naming off all of these things. He looked at the paper, he looked at me, and then he said, "You know what? I'm going to pass you." He said, "I'm going to tell you the reasons why." He said, "You have been in this semester and have caused me all kind of heartache. But I'm going to have the pleasure of knowing for the next 12 weeks that the United States Marine Corps is going to be kicking your butt."
That's funny.
And he went on and passed me.
And he did.
That one opportunity led for me to go into the Marine Corps, which was the first one. And I understood that, all right, Bubba, you need to start getting your stuff together. Mm-hmm. And from there, I just continued to, from one thing to the next, from one thing to the next, from one thing to the next.
Yeah. That sounds like that was a really pivotal turning life around point right there, Mr. Page.
It was. Mr. Page was. Actually, the first 3 weeks I got into the Marine, I was on week 2. Uh-huh. I was on week 2 and I said, I can't do this. I said, these guys are crazy. I said, I'm going home. So I'm going to figure out something. I said, I'm getting out of here. And so what happened, it wasn't nothing but the Lord. I looked out a window. There was a window and there was a graduation going on. I can still see it right now. And as I looked out the window and I saw the graduation, there was hundreds of guys that were graduating. And something stuck in my mind. It said, well, wait a minute. If you quit right now, you're saying that you are not better than at least one of those guys out there. And I said, start taking this one day, get through the day, and then the next day, get through the day, the next day. And again, that was another pivotal moment for me.
Yeah. And that's also a great perspective. You know, if someone's in a really hard spot, if their perspective is just take it one day at a time. If I can get through this day, then I can get through the next day. But you got to focus on one day at a time.
And that's where one of my things, and I do a lot of mentoring to young men. Yeah. And I tell them all the time, thinking one particular one, he always repeats it back to me, it's not a marathon, it's a sprint.
Yeah.
And if you take out the bits and chunks of life as that, you would turn around and you'll look up and you'll say, oh, wow, because we don't know this thing called life. We're wondering where we're going to come out in the end. And so.
Yeah. So my team met you at a Culture of Belonging Summit in Clayton that was held a month or so ago, 2 months ago. I unfortunately wasn't able to attend, but they're texting me during your speech, your part, your talk, and they're like, "You've got to meet Michael Sims. You got to get him on the podcast." So can you just summarize in a few? I don't know, summarize somehow. What you talked about that day that was so powerful.
Thank you. Well, let me say this too. You got an outstanding team, and I think it is a product of their leader. After it was over, they stayed and asked me a bunch of questions. Loved the questions that they gave me. I talk or I asked to speak about pretty much about 4 different things. Mm-hmm. Leadership is like a primary thing. Working on a book on that. Oh. I used to get asked about marketing, digital marketing, and things like that. I call it customer experience, not customer service. Right. I get asked that. And then the 4th thing is communication, how we communicate. I've been extremely, again, blessed in the fact that the different things that I have covered from government, nonprofit, corporate. So understanding how we communicate to one another is extremely important, especially in this time in day and age. My wife, who is, of course, I've spoke about several times, is African-American. And I always give the example that we, just with me, of course, being African-American, we expect that the fact that, okay, all right, you guys are good to go as far as communicating with one another. My wife is from Wausau, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Okay. She likes the red hot dogs and the boiled peanuts and those things like that. And she'll talk about doing the tobacco out in the field. Those are things that I will never, ever understand. Okay. But at the same time, she doesn't know a Coney Island hot dog. She doesn't know a Detroit Square pizza. All right. She doesn't know what it is to eat that White Castle burger late at night about 2:00 in the morning.
Hey, I know about White Castle burgers.
There we go.
You know why? Because my family is from Ohio. And we used to eat those as kids.
Now
They're gross. I can just see it now, that little square burger.
That little square,
Yes.
yeah. Well, people are always funny. They laugh at the fact that you'll go there and you'll say something like, and when I'm talking about, give me 12 burgers.
Yes.
And they're like 25 cents a piece and stuff, and they're little squares and stuff. But those things are things that are totally separate, but they are not color driven. So she can talk to a Caucasian individual that knows the red hot dog,
Right.
that knows that what it is to be out there working in a tobacco field, all right, to know about the boiled peanuts. So things and how we communicate are less about color and more about culture, where you grew up at. But our problem is in society, we make things more color driven. If we learn to communicate with one another from a standpoint of where each and every person is at, then that would be a lot better. But that takes us to have a relationship.
Yeah, that's good.
You have to take time to have a relationship. Here's the problem with the word relationship, and I talked about this at the gathering. We think that a relationship means that I have to hug you up and we going out and having a beer together. And it doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means for me to know you as a person. And your background and where you come from. It'll allow us to relate to one another a lot more better.
Yeah.
I can say that after 30, what are we on? I think we are on 38 years of marriage or whatever. So I would say I will taste and eat a red hot dog here and there. I'll try to suck down a boiled peanut here or there sometime or whatever. But I understand what that means in her particular world, whatever.
Right.
And likewise with her. So if we are able to understand that as we're communicating in our different environments, all right, it makes us better people, makes us better leaders. But most of all, it allows us to understand one another so that we can move forward in a lot better things.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I love that point about relationship. If you're in relationship with someone else.
Yes.
That's what's key. That is what is important.
It is.
And you can communicate so much better. What would you say to our audience about, maybe some key takeaways or some words of encouragement about maybe when they get stuck or they have hard times or, any of these things we've been talking about? What's some advice you'd give?
Your mindset, and I remember, and I always kind of knew this, but Pepsi used to always say this. At Pepsi, especially I got corporate Pepsi, you could never, ever say you had a problem. You could never say. That was like, oh gosh, that was like a cardinal sin. Don't say there's a problem. Don't say you say there's an opportunity. I think if I was to say anything, as you go through different challenges, as you go, because something's going to always happen. There's always going to be something, okay? Look at it as an opportunity. The first opportunity is to grow closer to Christ, okay? If you are a faith believer, you will understand that that's the first thing that opportunity to give it to you. Second, it's an opportunity for you to grow, because for this to happen, there's something that's lacking, okay? There's something that's lacking. So whether it be some training, whether it could be school, whether it could be building a relationship, or whatever, it could be different things, but it's giving you that chance to grow. And lastly, I say that the biggest thing of all is, I think that you come to understand that you don't want to repeat. That's where, when you start having problems, there's always going to be things, but at the same time, you don't want them to constantly repeat, because there's something that you're not doing right. And take accountability for yourself. What's really funny to me in this day and age now, because people don't take accountability, I will say in a heartbeat, oh, that's my fault.
Yeah.
Oh, I did. It shocks people now.
Yeah.
It shocks people because nobody says that anymore. I say, hey, that was my mistake. I'm the one that did that.
Yeah.
Whatever. So be accountable. Be
Yeah.
accountable.
I think that also speaks volumes when people, I mean, we all mess up. We're human.
We are.
And when you take accountability, responsibility for mistakes that you make and you own it and you say, hey, I own that. And here's what I'm going to do to be better
There it is.
in that area.
Yes.
I think that's so respectable. I mean, when I look at leaders, you look at politicians, church leaders, medical leaders, whatever it is, when they take responsibility and say, my bad, and I'm going to do better, and this is how I'm going to do it. I just have so much respect for people like that.
Oh my gosh. Think about what you just said right there. You and yourself just said a mouthful. Not picking any side, not saying any type of particular politician, but stop and think about it. When's the last time you heard a politician ever say, that was my fault?
Yeah.
I made a mistake. It's almost ingrained to the fact that they can't say that they ever made a mistake. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
The number one question, which I just thought, I hated the question, but as it would happen, the Lord blessed me with an answer. I got asked till I was talking about to nauseam, was I Republican or was I a Democrat?
Right.
I'm actually independent, been independent for like 18 years. And as I would get asked a question, I would always answer back, would you rather have me be for your side or would you rather have me be for your issue? And people would look, they would kind of turn their head, and it was like almost to a person go, wow, I never thought about it like that.
Right.
I'd rather have you be for my issue. I said, there you have it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm for. I'm for your issue. The problem is that we've been so divided into sides that when you get divided into sides, going back to the original thing we were talking about, you can't answer and say that you are wrong on anything because you're for that side. That side has to be right. That strives and pushes you to never be wrong.
Yeah.
And of course, you and I both know that's impossible to not be wrong on anything.
Right.
We're going to make mistakes, but I got to make sure my side is the right side.
Is the winner.
It is the winner. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, little self-disclosure. When I was 18 and I registered to vote, I registered as an independent. It was sort of in rebellion to my parents. But now at almost 50, I look back and I'm like, thank goodness I had the foresight because I don't want to affiliate with anybody. I don't want to affiliate with the team. I'm with you. Like, let's focus on the issues. Let's, love people where they're at.
Yes.
And serve people and serve that, not serving sides or whatever.
In politics, and I have no grandeur of going any further because the reality of it is in politics, I want to go, higher than the municipality where I'm at right now. You pretty much almost have to pick a side, unfortunately, because it's so much money. I didn't realize, I knew, but I didn't know. Now that I'm in it and I can just see it a little bit, it's so much money driven. That they almost push you to go to a particular side.
Right.
And the sadness in that is that the people are not being taken care of. The way that they should be by the people who are being put in place in these leadership positions.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I bet that's a super complicated position.
It is.
To be.
It is. Where I'm at on a municipality level, it's as a council person, I have to make a lot of decisions.
Yeah.
Local politics is actually more impactful to you than your national one. Most people don't realize that, and kind of what happens with that, we elect Joe Smo, and they don't really understand, and they're making certain decisions that's going to impact for later on. There's and I again, being very transparent, I knew, but I didn't know. I knew the decisions and things like that, but Clayton, which is one of the fastest growing towns in the state of North Carolina, in 2009 or 10, we were around 9,000 people. Right now, we're over 30,000. And it's just growing and growing. So the decisions that I have to make are going to be extremely impactful when you start talking about the infrastructure, the budget, future parks and recreation, those things like that for those who are coming behind me.
Yeah, yeah. Are you allowed to say any wonderful, amazing projects coming to Clayton, North Carolina?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things is you have the Copper District.
Okay.
If for your viewers, if I could put it in relationships to anything, you could think of kind of North Hills area,
Yeah.
picking up the North Hills area, and you're going to put it out there on Highway 42
Okay.
across from the hospital.
Oh, okay.
That whole area will be like North Hills out there.
That's
So
amazing.
that's a huge undertaking, huge project, especially, and it's kind of a joint thing because the town is working with the builders and developers from the standpoint of infrastructure that's going to be needed
Right.
for that. But that is going to change the landscape of. We just celebrated 50th anniversary with Grifols, which is one of the leading pharmaceuticals companies in the United States.
Yeah.
We have Novo Nordisk out there. Both of those two are looking at certain expansions. Caterpillar, which is out there. So a lot of opportunities, but the biggest thing of all, a lot of growth that's going to be continually to come there.
Okay, can I petition you to help us fix the roads and expand the roads first before they bring in all of those infrastructure projects?
Building, development and building is usually the number one question, and roads is usually the second.
Yeah.
I always have to explain to people, you got to tell me which road that you're talking about.
42.
Most of those are state roads.
Are they?
Yeah. And you got certain roads that are town roads, but then the ones that are state roads, then it has to go to DOT.
Yeah.
We have conversations with them, but with DOT, things are they're scheduled a certain way, and they don't put projects ahead of one another.
Yeah.
We're arguing about that right now.
Oh, yeah.
To say yes.
I live in Johnston County, been there almost 25 years, and I drive 42 all the time. We have 2 locations in Johnston County, one in Garner, one in Clayton. And so I know 42 highway over there by the hospital very well.
Yes.
I can't imagine a North Hills-ish kind of project going there without that road being expanded.
Actually, that road is going to be expanded. The problem is that we're arguing about is, oh gosh, I think the expansion is coming in 2030. We need it beforehand.
Yes.
So I'll just say that not just myself, but some of the other politicians, we're working with our local government to try to get that pushed to be sooner.
Well, Clayton is a great area to live and work.
It is.
And it is growing. People, I think, all over the country are recognizing how great Clayton is, and they're moving here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule.
No, I'm lazy.
Definitely not. TNT
Creative Group, digital marketing firm here in Raleigh. We specialize in digital media. We do everything from website to design, web security. We do 3D animation. A large part, of course, what we do is video, but we do video on what I like to call on a large, huge scale.
Yeah.
Everything from a standard commercial to we have a kind of a top secret documentary that we're working on, which we're really excited about right now.
Can people go to a website to find more?
Yes. Thank you. www.ttcreativegroup.com.
Awesome. Well, if you're interested in any of that, you can find that website. And hey, really appreciate you listening. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast, please give us a 5-star review. You can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. Thanks for listening.